Good morning and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View again this morning, Sunday morning. Sunday morning up with the lark. It's all looking good as far as Celtic are concerned. Back onto winning ways. There's a bit of meltdown in some media sections about a certain tackle yesterday, but listen, when you get blatant penalties not given against you, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, should they? Anyway, let's talk about Martin O'Neill. Martin O'Neill yesterday was, he said it was okay, it was fine. He was asked about the director of football scenario, actually, over the last couple of days, whether he'd be interested in taking up a position with inside Celtic. He did say, he says, I'm not too sure about that. He says, if you're talking about the head of football operations or a sporting director or a director of football, I do think that Sean Maloney is more attuned to that sort of thing. He will know all the players. He will have all of Celtic's lists that will have been compiled by a few different people over this chaotic season. But for Martin, he just wants to get players in that can make an immediate impact. I think that we will go down this transfer window with older loan players to get this league over the line. It's looking like Martin will stand his ground and say, look, I don't want project players. I don't want players that, are for the future. I don't have for the future. I have the here and now. So I think that it looks like that any players that Celtic were thinking about bringing in has now been put on hold, and Martin O'Neill will want in players 28, 29, 30-year-old with experience that can get us over the line. It's looking like that, but there's nothing being confirmed. Martin O'Neill says, I think Sean and the people behind the scenes at Celtic, for the next 4 months until the season's over, we need guys that can hit the ground running and make an impact on this first team. When you think about it, the type of players that the manager brought in when he was manager at Celtic 20 odd years ago, there was no, it was all players that had a little bit of experience. As of the 11th of January, the manager has not been backed. Well, he has. There is one player that's came in. So that's not true. I mean, Martin O'Neill has only been here not even a week yet, but there has been one player that came in on loan, and he came in and he played yesterday. He was brought in under Wilfred Nancy. So Wilfred Nancy could say that he's the only manager that's been 100% backed by Celtic. He asked for one player and he gets in one player and then he's sacked. But anyway, good morning to everybody in the chat. I think I'll just turn that off now. When you look back at it, Chris Sutton, Valharn, Thompson, Neil Lennon were all brought in, players that had a bit of experience. Martin O'Neill will want to go down that road. So any speculation that's out there, anybody that thinks that they know what's going on at Celtic, I would just say, you're talking nonsense, mate, because nobody knows. Until it is official that we know that somebody is on their way for a medical at Celtic Park, I think that is just pure speculation. And this could be one of the most weird windows ever, where a player gets announced that comes completely left the field and you're thinking, yeah, that's maybe a Martin O'Neill signing, but you don't know. Anyway, Callum McGregor spoke to the media yesterday, which was interesting because Callum McGregor hasn't been speaking to the media at all. He did give a little quick media thing with Celtic as they give Yang the man of the match. And you've got to say that Yang, absolutely fantastic player. He can't put a foot wrong just now. But can he not put a foot wrong due to the fact that Celtic have been really bad, and it will be quite easy for anybody to shine over this window over the next couple of months. Callum McGregor says, he says that, look, this is exactly what we were aiming for. Celtic team defined by its style of play. high pressing, real intensity, quick football, aggression, goals, and a clean sheet. A bit more like Celtic, and I think that we all agreed that. I mean, Wilfred Nancy came in and completely changed what Celtic were. And you can understand any manager wanting to change it to his style of football, but when you take a winning machine that's had a winning formula for so long, Wilfred Nancy said that he would die for the club, and ultimately he took his own career down the drain with the club. Um, Let me just do this a second. That isn't what I wanted to do. Callum McGregor. It's a wonder where and why he refused to speak to the media. I mean, was there a big fallout? He basically went on yesterday about the fact that his that Celtic's identity was brought back after it was taken away by the manager. He stresses that the performance looked like a true Celtic team. I think that we could all say that it was more like Celtic playing yesterday, and people that were looking for a further implosion of Celtic's season will be highly disappointed yesterday with an emphatic 4-0 win at Celtic Park of Dundee United. Some of the media will say Dundee United just never turned up and they tried to park the bus and it backfired against Celtic that were buoyed by a Martin O'Neill resurrecting his career once again to come out from the cold shadows of TV football to get into the main stand and then pass all of his dignity over to Sean Maloney and say, look, if there's anybody that needs to be in a higher position at Celtic Park, it is Sean Maloney. And it was very interesting that Martin O'Neill did say that. Callum McGregor said the high pressing, playing with intensity, moving the ball quickly, being aggressive, scoring goals, keeping a clean sheet. This is how Celtic play. So no, this is how Celtic play. Was that a sly dig at Wilfred Nancy? He pointed out that the how confident and assured the team looked yesterday. You know, players knew their roles was an interesting one. They knew what they should be doing. They trusted the system and they executed it well. That's a backhanded swipe to Wilfred Nancy if I've ever seen one by a Celtic captain. It would have been as well as coming out and saying, look, none of us had a Scooby what that geezer was on about. He was Willy Wonka type stuff. It was all, but it's anyway. Callum McGregor didn't do that. He says this is about momentum. It's not celebration. He brings Celtic fans back down to earth with a bump with that one, didn't he? John, the truck driving legend, is in the house. I need to try and put that there. And he says, hail, just about to go to work. Nice drive down to the borders. Berwick, East Lothian. I know where it is, mate. I've stayed in Scotland. I don't need a geography lesson. Kidding, mate, kidding. You get the banter for you for the same neck of the woods as me. Hope you all have a wonderful day today from the legend of the Kingdom of Fife in Free Balfarg. And it is the Kingdom of Fife. Fife Council need to return the signage in Fife to the Kingdom of Fife. I disagree when they took that away because it is a kingdom. It was always the Kingdom of Fife. 7 Scottish kings buried in Dunfermline Abbey should always be known as the Kingdom of Fife. This modern nonsense. But anyway, we move on from that. Callum McGregor says, look, he repeatedly in his interview kept saying, recover, go again, keep doing it. That's the Celtic way. Even when we were winning and before we had the blip of the season, he would talk about, look, we need to recover, keep going, doing it again. That's all that we do at Celtic. The captain, for once, talking about, performance is nothing unless we repeat it consistently until the end of the season. He knows that Celtic are in a fight. Callum McGregor knows that Celtic are ultimately going to be up against it over the next couple of weeks. And as you see down here, the next games is Falkirk. And Falkirk in the league. And St Mirren play Hearts the same night. That'll be very interesting. And then we go to Auchinleck Talbot for a 5:30 kickoff. What on earth could go wrong with a 5:30 kickoff? Down in Kilmarnock. Far too much bevy on the day. It would be a fantastic fantastic day. 9,000 Celtic fans giving it loudy. It's going to be, the songbook will be phenomenal on that day. Absolutely phenomenal. The captain says that performance means nothing unless we repeat this kind of thing consistently and every single game to the end of the season. The impact on Martin had, he says, the team had a bounce during the 6 weeks under Martin before. The players played with a freedom, a confidence, and a clarity, which was interesting. There's a couple of times in the interview yesterday, he spoke about clarity. He spoke about knowing and understanding the roles. It has to be one of the biggest backhanded slap against any previous manager that I've ever seen any Celtic captain make publicly. He talked about the dominance. He endorsed the coaching and the continuity of the familiarity of having the band back together, as they say. Tactical dominance. The counter pressing was superb. The game was played almost entirely in the Dundee United half of the pitch. I mean, people complaining yesterday that the defence wasn't tested at Celtic. No defence normally gets tested at Celtic, because if Celtic play their A game, Celtic are the dominant team. You can talk about defence not being good and this and whatever, but if Celtic defend from the front, like many Celtic teams do, put pressure on them. The fact that both the Celtic central defenders, spent most of the game over the halfway line tells me that Celtic as a team, as a core, as a unit, were emphatic in their domination of the game yesterday. And people will say, look, it was only Dundee United. The same Dundee United, with the same Dundee United tactics, beat us 2-1 in December. Let's put it into perspective. But anyway, Callum McGregor says that the counter press was superb. The game was played mostly in their half, and that was the difference. The counter pressing. As soon as they got the ball, get players onto them. Don't let them go forward. Don't let them get their gameplay, their gameplay into action. But Celtic controlled the territory. They won back the ball quickly, which Callum McGregor alluded to when he's talking about the press and counter press, and we've suffocated the opposition. That's what Celtic teams do. That's what Martin O'Neill teams do. It's what we wish the Brendan Rodgers team tried to do, but just didn't do it as well as what Martin O'Neill can convince the players. It's an elite level talk coming from Callum McGregor. He's an elite player. A lot of people do not give Callum McGregor the respect that he deserves for being Celtic captain. A lot of people say that, look, he's Mr. Pointy, and I think that Callum does bring a lot to the game. And when Callum McGregor leaves Celtic, we will be left with a massive void at Celtic Park. And unfortunately, we do not have anyone coming through the system that can fill the void. Callum's been at Celtic for a long time, and we're going to have to go into the market and trust the next manager to bring in someone that gets Celtic. Your midfielder, your holding midfield player, you can go way back over the course of the history of Celtic Football Club, has always been someone that's had some kind of link to the club, and has always been someone that knows what the club is all about. Bringing in players that don't know anything about the club, and ultimately bringing in managers that don't get the club, can be very, very disheartening for the supporters, and it can show in results. You only need to look at certain clubs in Scotland where they've brought in managers, they've brought in midfielders, they've brought in players that don't get the club, don't get the importance of the need to win every single game. We've built a process at Celtic where, until now, we had a conveyor belt of players coming through. That's stopped in the last 4 years. We don't have that conveyor belt of younger players coming through into the system that know what it means to play for Celtic and want to become legends at Celtic. The modern day football player is, the younger player of the game now, have no interest in maintaining a legacy at one certain football club. They just know that they're in a short career. Their agents have put it into their heads that it's a short career. It's all about money. You need to make as much money as you can as quick as possible. because you might get to the end of their career and you're getting paid absolutely shit wages because you're not getting the teams that you think that you should get. And that's the sad reality of football players, younger players that have left Celtic Football Club over the last couple of years. They might get the money now, they might get 20 grand a week now, but in 3 or 4 years' time, they'll find themselves playing in lower leagues in England, maybe even get a team back in Scotland, but they will never achieve what they might have achieved if they had stayed at Celtic Football Club, winning trophies. You know, Scott Brown said it. So many players make the mistake of chasing the cash, and then they get back onto him on the dog and bone and say, oh, Scotty, you were right. I should never have left. Should never have left. But anyway, Callum McGregor, speaking about Yang, he's surprised by his goals, especially scoring from inside the box, which isn't typical for Yang. You know, he's not a typical goal scorer, but he's turning into a goal scorer this season. Several managers have pulled out certain things within the Yang, and it's the yin and yang is certainly falling into place for him as a player. Wilfred Nancy made Yang excel as a player, strangely enough, over the last couple of weeks. But Callum McGregor says, look, his answer is simple, sincere. Show confidence, grow naturally, rather than a forced bravado. And that was maybe a dig at Louis Palmer, because Louis Palmer had the bravo, he had the aura of maybe being a better player than what he was, and ultimately he was ejected from the house of Celtic Football Club. He was told he was basically not good enough. You're like, mate, you're fucking talking shite half the time. You think that you're better than you are. Just put in the hard work and you'll have a career at Celtic. But he didn't believe in that, so he ended up out the door. Celtic have reconnected with their playing identity yesterday. It's only one game. Let's not get rushed off our feet. We are at the moment second in the table, which is always good. When you look at the Premiership, the Scottish Premiership table this morning, and yes, you will say that, look, Rangers play today. As it stands, we're on 21 games each. When you look at Hearts, they are on 20. It does mean that Celtic are in second place, and we all know this, and we know why we're in second place, the amount of games that we lost over the last 6 weeks. The goal difference is the good bit, because the goal difference, the fact that Celtic closed that little bit of a gap, and, you know, scoring the goals yesterday, you might not think it means a lot, and it's just the 1-4-0 defeat. If we keep on going on 3-4-0 defeats, we will regain top spot within no time. And you might find that we could regain top spot in a game in a couple of weeks when we play Hearts in the league. What a better way for Martin O'Neill to show how good he is as a manager, to take Celtic back to the top of the table and get us going forward as a club. Now, let's talk about, we've spoken a lot about Yang and Callum McGregor, and how Callum says that, you know, it's unusual for Yang to be such a goal-scoring machine. But there's one thing for sure, he feels that the dressing room is unified, the confidence is back, there's zero sense of complacency within the Celtic squad. The message from Callum McGregor is repetition. He's never deviated. Do you know? We dust ourselves down. We have a day off today. It was good win yesterday. Means nothing. We need to get back to work tomorrow on Monday morning. We need to get ready for the game on Wednesday night, and we need to win that. And we need to win it emphatically to make sure that once again we get in the goals, because goals is what's going to matter. The fact that he's making sure that the fans know there's no complacency from him as captain, finally coming out to speak to the media after not wanting to speak to the media very much. It's good to have him back. Will he leave in this window? I don't think so. The demeanour of, I think if Wilfred Nancy was to have retained the Celtic manager's position till the end of the season. If he'd somehow tried to change, if results had went his way and he wasn't sacked, I think Callum McGregor would have had a serious think to himself about, do I really want to be part of this shit show? You know, I've lived through various managers in my Celtic career, and I thought it couldn't get any worse than the time under Ronnie Dyler. But when Callum McGregor had to walk out from Celtic Park last weekend, and he had fans screaming at them to make an apology, to say something, it's very reminiscent of scenes in another part of the city, and it's never been the Celtic way. But going forward, hopefully Celtic are back to normal. Anyway, as a transfer news, there's a little bit of, is there something in the pipeline? There's something not in the pipeline. Martin O'Neill has been very cautious about saying anything, and he hopes to speak to Daizen Maeda on Monday or Tuesday. He keeps pushing it down the corridor, this one, doesn't he? Does he know something that he's maybe alluding to that, But anyway, and Kyogo says he's more than happy at Birmingham. Shock horror. I think it was just whoever decided at Celtic, you know what would be a great idea? Let's get in touch with Birmingham and see if they'll give us Kyogo. Kyogo's come out and said that there's no chance. I'm happy here. I don't want to talk a lot about, but there's chances that we can go on and do stuff in the Premier League. We all want to aim for that. Talking about after 9 months, it would be great if we share the happiness of achieving that, said Kyogo. Kyogo, who managed to score in the FA Cup, I believe. But anyway, who cares about Kyogo? He's from the past. He's a ghost from the past. Right, let's jump into some of the comments before we finish up this morning. Trying to remember what he was allowed to say was funny. Yeah. Yeah, Martin trying to remember what am I allowed to say? Martin O'Neill was being very, very cautious when it came to the fact that I know stuff that's going on, but I'm not really allowed to tell you. He's wanting the move. Who wants the move, Brown Warrior? Kyogo? I don't think so. Kyogo's not the answer. No, he's not. If we had Kyogo striker, a type of Kyogo striker yesterday, we'd have scored a few more. Don't need to bring Kyogo, but if we scout the correct person, it is about moving forward. I mean, bringing in a 30-year-old striker, whilst you might say, he could score goals, he wasn't exactly on fire when he left Celtic the last time. And then you've got to look at the face of Daizen Maeda. When Daizen Maeda came off the pitch yesterday, when you look at Daizen Maeda coming off the pitch, he was of the same demeanour as Kyogo Furuhashi in the final days of Kyogo Furuhashi's time at Celtic. I still think and I still believe that Daizen Maeda will be away in the next transfer window. I think that Daizen Maeda he'll be gone in this transfer window. But we'll wait and see. Anyway, that's been done and dusted for this morning. If anybody's just joining in, apologies. We do start at 8:30 in the morning, and just watch the video back. On that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans, wherever you are, all around the world.